YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back after a crazy Sunday in NFL Week 1. It's always crazy in Week 1, but I'm here with my recap takeaways for every single Sunday game. We do this video every single Monday. I end up usually going on some rants, ripping some teams, some coaches. I'm sure we'll do that today. If you're looking for a Thursday night recap, already up. Week 2 content starts on Tuesday. Every Tuesday, the next week's content rolls out. Power rankings at night. We got the weekly picks, score predictions on Wednesday, so make sure you join us for that. Like, subscribe to notifications on. Follow us on Twitter. We talk live during games. Same thing for tonight's game, Monday Night Football. Super followers get bonus content. We got picks leagues going. You might be a little late, but there's still ways to get involved. There's some sweet prizes and a lot more prizes from the GLD shop. Rocking my Vikings chain. I rocked this during the game, and I gotta wear it. It's good luck. Gotta wear it during every game. If you wear your team's chain, they're guaranteed to win. But I can't really fully confirm that, I guess. But, yeah, we have a code GOAT, 33% off in the GLD shop. They got 6 chains, very affordable, real gold. NFL players wear their stuff. Link down below for anything you're looking for. Leagues, giveaway from GLD shop, their link and the code down there. Very useful stuff pinned in the comments. And, yeah, Aaron Jones, Mike Parsons wears their stuff. We're doing a giveaway, league prizes, everything. I didn't think I'd be a huge chain guy, but definitely am after getting this stuff. And I'm not just saying that either. Really cool stuff here. But on to the Sunday recap and takeaways. Saints and the Falcons. The Saints with a hell of a comeback and pull out a squeaker of a win, 27-26. My biggest takeaway comes with the Falcons in this one. Man, and some team, it's a brutal loss. It's a very brutal loss, and it's not just because they choked a lead. And there's some teams that just no matter who's on their team, who their coaching staff is, who their quarterback is, they just choke games. And the Falcons are one of those teams. And my Vikings are usually one of those teams. And there's just teams like that. I feel like the Chargers were like that for a while. The Browns, it's weird. So feel bad for Falcons fans. And that makes the loss brutal because they choked a lead. But that's not even the biggest part. The biggest part to me is things were going your way. Like, if you didn't watch this game and you looked just at the final score, the stats, maybe some highlights, you're probably like, oh, the Falcons put up a pretty good fight against a pretty good team, the Saints, and there was some good moments. Part of that's kind of true, but I don't really look at it like that. This is a game you have to close out. You have to, things weren't going the Saints' way. Did not play good for 3 quarters. Their pass protection was not good. I mean, the Falcons are not supposed to be a good pass rush team this year. I still don't have high hopes for it, but they were able to get after the quarterback, disrupt that for 3 quarters about, maybe 2.5. I think the only thing they couldn't really get Pitts going, but Mariota was all right. He had a bad red zone fumble. Cordell Patterson. I mean, who runs wild on the Saints? Nobody really does. Cordell Patterson was running wild on the Saints at a monster game. Mariota was a problem for them with his legs. And you were up big and things were going your way, and you just cannot find a way to close it out. And you're like, oh, they might choke it. Saints coming back, But no, they stopped them at a 2-point conversion. Now they're gonna hold on. They still found a way to lose. And why it's so brutal is, things kind of went your way. You had control of this game. You did outplay your opponent for most of this game, and you could not find a way to win. So how are we gonna trust you to find a way to win enough games that you're supposed to win? It's really hard to see them closing out because, again, things got to go their way on top of it. So it's brutal. And there was some bright spots. Mariota, we talked about it. These guys were solid here and there. Cordero went off. Defense, they got more of a pass rush than we expected. Obviously, you just got to close this game out. It's not really... It's week 1. You can't predict things based on what you see in week 1. But, if you can't close out games like this, it's hard to fully trust you to get the job done moving forward. That's from any week. It applies from any week there. So that's tough for the Falcons. They had a shot at a real deep field goal. Younghoe Koo's a beast, but that was a tough one. End up being blocked. And I will say that the play of the game, the moment of the game probably was... Marcus May getting that forced fumble, which I love that pickup from the Saints. Getting that forced fumble on Marcus Mariota. Mariota's got to take care of that ball. They're in the red zone. I mean, that game's over. That game, there was a lot of football left after that. Big plays happened, but if the Falcons got points on that drive, to me, that game was over. So that was a major play from the Saints. Surprisingly, yeah, they couldn't get much going early. It was kind of just Taysom Hill, using Taysom Hill, and Wildcat. That's really where their production was generated from. They didn't really seem right. Like I usually see them a little more prepared. So maybe it's missing Sean Payton. Maybe it's a week one thing. It's just going to happen no matter what. Just coincidence. Definitely possibility. I didn't love the play calling or really the game plan either. I think that's why they kind of started slow. Another reason was Jameis Winston was getting pressured for a good amount of time. And it kind of took him a little bit to get going. He really got going later. I mean, Michael Thomas really got going. Jarvis Landry kind of had a quiet, kind of weird saying quiet, but a well over 100 yards, which is maybe quiet because we don't really realize, and a lot of people were talking about it. So he racked up the yards. Michael Thomas was huge all around, but catching the ball in the end zone, obviously the 2 touchdowns in the red zone there. But, yeah, I wish they would have ran Kamara a little bit more. I didn't really know what the game plan was there. It didn't really feel like a Saints. It didn't really feel like the Saints there, full strength Saints for a bit there. I wish they would have ran Kamara a little bit more, got him the ball a little bit more, but maybe they got a plan going forward, easy. I don't know what it is exactly. I was trying to figure out, what was their plan there. It was really just Jameis kind of figuring it out and then buying himself a little bit more time later, and the receivers getting going later in the game, and that comeback was special, So I didn't love the way they started. It just didn't really feel right for me. Again, it is week one, but then for them to click and get going, it's a great sign, going forward, kind of gaining that momentum. But, yeah, maybe it's not the same offensive line, pass protection-wise, as we're used to from the Saints. No more Armstead, obviously. And then their first round pick Penning was out as well. But they were allowing quite a bit of pressure, and that's arguably going into the year kind of predicted who was supposed to be one of the worst pass rush teams in football there in the Falcons. But I guess that's something to monitor. I would imagine the Saints-Bucks next week's a lot of pressure on the quarterback, both quarterbacks. Even though the Saints really couldn't get a whole lot going in this game, but I think it was due to just the running game of the Falcons and Mariota using his legs. But, I do want to see a little bit better play calling from the Saints. I think, especially that 2-point. I thought they were done after that 2-point conversion. They had Ingram and the Wildcat. I don't really know what that was. Like I said, it's a low percentage to me scoring that. So Falcons knew what was coming there. I mean, there was not too many things they could have done on that, So like Ingram's and Wildcat, obviously he's going to keep the ball there. So Taysom Hill, I guess but he can throw though, but it becomes obvious. But he's able to find a way there, obviously. But again, I wish they would have got Kamara going a little bit more defensively. Marcus May made that big play. I thought Pete Werner was everywhere. Just the main takeaway from this: Falcons got to find a way to close. They got to win this game. They got to close it out. Even the Saints are the better team. They're supposed to be, obviously, the way this game went, the Falcons have to close that game out. So that's a tough one. But again, that forced fumble, Mariota fumbling, Marcus maybe going to play. That was kind of the play of the game there. Next, the Bears and the Niners. The Bears pull off the upset at home. It was a rainy, sloppy game. I can definitely see fans kind of blaming, and the game changes because of that, but I can see the fans just chalking up to that here. But the Bears also had to play in that as well, so I don't really like that take that the 49ers lost because of the rain. I don't really love that take if that's the case. I've had it said to me in the past, and there was rainy games, the game was raining, that's why they didn't play great. The other team had to do the same thing, so I'm not a big fan of that. But sure, it changes a little bit of the game plan and stuff, and it was a little bit more messy out there than we expected it to be. But Bears pull a little bit of a comeback on this one as well. I mean, they couldn't get any offense going for a bit of this game. So you expected it just the 49ers to be able to take care of business, and they couldn't do. That's the thing with this. The more and more I think about this game, it's how not only how the 49ers not find a way to win, but how do they lose by 2 scores in this game? That's pretty bad. Everybody still thinks the 49ers have a better roster than the Bears, even after this game. If you have the better talent, I know week one, different things happen, weird things happen, but if you have the better talent, and the Bears really, they got things going late. They had a couple clutch plays. That's really what it came down to. But, Fields completed 8 passes. Darnell Mooney, their only solid receiver, only had 1 catch. Their running back, David Montgomery, who was kind of their main running back, just really couldn't get anything going. And then Herbert, which I've talked about this offseason, Herbert actually might fit their new scheme a little bit better. That looked like the case in 1 week because Herbert played a pretty good game. But, Fields only completes 8 passes, only takes like 17 or so attempts. Again, Montgomery couldn't get things going. Mooney only had 1 catch. The Bears had like kind of a stall of offense where they couldn't really get first downs. And you're supposed to be the better team than that team that I just explained, and you lose by 9 points. Like, it's pretty bad. Like, that to me, that's pretty bad. So, you don't want to predict things going forward off of week 1, for the 49ers, but it's not the best look. It's not the best look for your quarterback. We do worry about the interior offensive line play. You just worry about finding, ways to get the job done here. And it was tough that Elijah Mitchell got hurt because he was actually running well, and then Wilson could not run well. So that was pretty tough. So 49ers, again, they feel like every other year it's like they get beat down with injuries, and they already had guys hurt going into this game. So it could be one of these years, so maybe some doubt to 49ers there. But hopefully they figure things out there, because that was not, 10 points, unacceptable there. And they won the time of possession as well. Like, all those things, like the Bears couldn't get much going. They clutched up, and we'll talk about the Bears. They clutched up and we'll talk about them in a second. Got things going at the end, but and their defense had played a hell of a game, but things weren't really going right for the Bears. That's the thing. When upsets happen in week 1, it's like everything went their way. I'd say penalties maybe went one way, I suppose, but usually when there's upsets, like everything went that team's way. I wouldn't really say that. Like the Niners got to find a way, in this game, and it's not like it, they really didn't have a shot at the end. It felt like. So it's pretty tough. That's a tough one. And they really relied on Debo, too. It was kind of just relying on Debo. And he wasn't supposed to get carries, but he got carries, got a rushing touchdown there. Nobody else really can get anything going. And Lance couldn't get much going. Interception to Eddie Jackson. That's a tough one, too, because there's some interceptions by young guys where it's just like, all right, yeah, we can fix that. We can tune that. Or that was an unfortunate play. Like, he just plain and simple just did not. I don't know how he didn't see Eddie Jackson. Just plain and simple didn't see him. And usually when you see those are things that really don't go away. So that's a little concerning. You don't want to predict things off of one interception, one game. Definitely not going to do that. But the type of interception it is, it's not good. It's not good there. So, yeah, the Niners, it's just what it was. They won the time of possession with, that's all I was getting to. Won the time of possession, 33 minutes of time of possession, what Niners love to do, and they usually win games like that, and they just still couldn't find a way. It's just, so it's a bigger loss than you think on that one. But the Bears found a way. I thought the Bears defense played great. They had a number of guys getting after Lance, getting after the quarterback. Dominique Robinson, the rookie, who was a former receiver turned pass rusher. I love that draft pick because I loved his upside, what he can become at the edge rush position, and what he is already doing in game one. That's pretty good because he's supposed to be an upside guy. I expect the 49ers to rack up like 1 million sacks in this game. Didn't really do that. So the Bears draft class, looked pretty good. Like a lot of young guys, Brisker, they got Braxton Jones starting out there, really stepping up. Yeah, Fields couldn't really get much going until kind of the end, and you see you kind of just did enough there, using his legs, escaping, and buying time. And, it's impossible to cover for that long. So it bought time, and guys eventually got wide open. So you see that's where Fields comes in. That's where he can win. I wish he, got a little bit more consistent or got things going early on in the game. So still some things to work on. I thought he outplayed Lance, though, and that's while only completing 8 passes, so that's pretty tough to do, I suppose. But yeah, and again, I like the way Khalil Herbert looked. I think he fits the new staff's running scheme that they want to do there, a little bit more outside zone. So that's a pretty good look. And Montgomery couldn't really get much going. We'll see what happens, going forward the next week. But the defense looked good. They made plays. They're flying around the field. Really liked what I saw from them. Mainly with the young guys. Some of the young guys there. So they found a way to win. In some sloppy conditions. Again, both teams had to play in the same conditions. And they came back, they clutched up, they found a way to win, and it looked like they're having a lot more fun doing it compared to last year. 49ers, it's just a tough one. I guess they got to move on, figure things out, hopefully not playing in the rain anytime soon. And, they can't rely on Debo as much, and they got to get some guys healthy, get some guys back. Again, Because it's not like everything went the Bears' way. It's really not like that. And I keep going back to that. That's the main takeaway. And they won the time of possession, the Niners, that is. And you got to find a way. You got to find a way on that one. It's 10 points and losing 9. They needed 2 more scores to be able to find a way. It's pretty tough. That's pretty tough. It's only week 1, though. Steelers and Bengals. This game was such a wild game, but it got to the point where, like, usually the wild games are extremely entertaining. It got to the point where it wasn't entertaining anymore. It felt like a really bad college football game. That's really what it felt like. But it was pretty crazy for a portion there. And this is a tough one all the way around. Really, the positive here that you can find somewhere is the Steelers. Well, they won. They found a way to win. That's the positive for that side, for the winning side, obviously. And they made some big plays on defense. Defense looked pretty damn good, creating turnovers. That's the positive. But there isn't. It's one of those games where there's not too much. There's really, even from the winning side, there's not too much positive. Big reason why is because of injuries. Najee Harris, it sounds like he's going to be better than what we thought. He has a shot to play next week. First report was like 2 or 3 weeks, but TJ Watt tearing his pec, and you can read his lips. He said it right away, and it's at the end of this game too. It's just so tough. It's just so tough. And on top of that too, I mean you got week 1's all about getting out with a win. The Steelers did that, so overall positivity. But again, there are negatives. There's more negatives for a normal, win, because the injuries. And I mean, you turn the Bengals over that many times. Like, they played about as disastrous as a game. And the great thing is you caused it, right? But you still were and some people would say they should have lost the game. I'm not going to, you can't really go to a one blocked extra point. You can go through moments of the game where shoulda, coulda, woulda, it could have went either way. But I think most people probably would say that, so maybe you could say they're a little fortunate to come out there with the win at the end of the day when everything kind of went their way. So how's it going to be going forward when the team, you don't create 5 turnovers on a good quarterback, so that's a little, I mean, it's mainly because their offense couldn't get things going. And I guess the positive is, it's not really a positive. You got dominated on time of possession. That's not positive, but you got dominated on time of possession and you won the game. It was due to those turnovers. So it almost feels like a team that, you're going to have to, they kind of need to rely on having that crazy of a defensive outing, which is kind of tough. Thank God they held on to the win for their sake, because you're losing a game like that. It's another one of those where it's like, if you can't find a way to win that one, I don't know which ones you're going to find a way to win, So it's a good thing they found a way to hold on that one. TJ Watt was insane. Obviously got injured. He's just ridiculous. And Minkah Fitzpatrick was insane in this game. Starts with a pick 6. Looked like cover 2, just jumped it. Not the best throw, but it's a really good play. Takes it back for 6. We're talking about setting the tone. And he was everywhere throughout the whole game. Everywhere. This is one of the better games I've seen him play. And he's been playing pretty good too. Blocked the extra point. Insane. Minkah Fitzpatrick, something else, playing up to that contract for sure on a game like that. Secondary is a little underrated maybe there in Pittsburgh because they don't look that great on paper. Guys like Sutton probably underrated. And it helps they have a pass rush. TJ Watt was insane. Highsmith had 3 sacks. They have Hayward up there, but the secondary, underrated, played better than expected. It's a tough one though, because those injuries, and man, you're kind of relying on a lot of things there, because you should really dominate this game. That's just because the offense couldn't get much going. It's kind of your Trubisky with a poor offensive line offense. So that's a tough part there. Bengals got a pretty good defense in there. That's the thing though. The Bengals defense is, I talked about before, they are tough for quarterbacks because they're very tough to figure out what coverage they're in. That's the best thing the quarterback can do. Figure out what coverage the defense is in and then go from there, and that creates bigger plays, easier plays from the quarterbacks. And you don't expect Trubisky to be at the top end of the quarterbacks of reading coverages, of course. But on top of that, the Bengals are tough. They're tough to figure out what they're in because they switch it up constantly. It's a big reason why they're a good defense. So maybe going against the Patriots next week, or you are usually like man coverage, like they're probably going to be in man here. It's not super difficult to read what they're in when they're in it. Usually you got to figure out the blitzes for the Patriots are tough to pick up, figure out who's got to, make the adjustments to the line. So it's a different story, I suppose. But, Yeah, so it could be it. I'm trying to find positives. And maybe that is just what it was in week 1 for the offense and Trubisky. But, yeah, they got to figure something out offensively, but maybe they will. Maybe they will. Yeah, the Bengals, I was just not expecting that. I was not expecting the score. I mean, I predicted the Bengals to win. But I said it's a division rival game. I could see the Steelers winning, and I had it around the score line. So it's really not. It's not that. Like, I wasn't expecting that at all. I wasn't expecting Burrow to turn the ball over as much as they did. I think people are trying to. It's funny. It's kind of funny because people are trying to figure out what to blame on that, because there were so many people during the offseason that spent the offseason say the Bengals fix their offensive line. Oh my God, it's over. Super Bowl. How many times did I say? And it's not a done deal, determined factor that they're still bad. It's definitely not. Not trying to say that. But how many times did I say? And probably the things I've repeated myself on the most is that they made it better on paper, and I didn't think they made it as better on paper as people thought. They definitely made it better on paper, but I mean, you get a Patriots backup in there and Karras that everyone's getting going crazy out, like he's been some All-Pro starter, but and then you got pieces here and there. They definitely got better, but how many times did I say, like, you got to see it in action first? It's got to take some time. We can't just determine it being better, So that was the case here. The offensive line really, really struggled, and I think people were like, I spent all offseason hype on the offensive line. Do I really want to blame the offensive line? Do I blame Burrow? Never like to blame your franchise piece quarterback. It's definitely a mixture of both. Burrow is definitely off. Some weird decisions throwing the ball from him. And, was strip sacked a bit. I mean, it's not all of his fault if he gets hit, and, especially on the blind side or something like that, but you do got to take care of the football. So, the Bengals, it's tough because it's about as disastrous as it could be, which is bad. But the positive is you could say they should have won the game. Like, you were still in there against a division rival, as disastrous as it was. So you kind of can try to find the positivity there and going forward. Like, as long as we don't do that, we might be pretty good again. So you could say that, but that's tough. So you worry if they are. I don't see them turn the ball over that much, like, again, really. But you could say that they might be a little more prone to those turnovers going forward. It's tough to fully say that because I believe in the team a lot, Burrow a lot. A big positive thing was Jamar Chase. The guy's unbelievable. We knew that, though. We knew that years ago before he even touched the NFL. So, he was something else. Hopefully T. Higgins is all right because they could use him, obviously. And running game was struggling early, especially against a Steelers team that struggled to stop the run last year. But then Mixon got going a little later, so maybe some positivity there. But they dominated time of possession as well. Defense did their part. Defense definitely did their part. They dominated time of possession, and you can't find a way to win. And that's pretty brutal. That's pretty brutal, too. And it's the turnovers, though. That's what it is. It's turnovers. So you just can't – it's plain and simple with the Bengals. You cannot turn the ball over that many times, and then you can't miss an extra point to win the game. Before that last drive, they got stopped. It looked like Chase might have scored. They hurried up to the line. If they would have got a chance to review that, the Bengals might have won. They could have went multiple ways where the Bengals probably could have won the game. And people will probably focus on that, but it's kind of going, you can't turn the ball over that many times. I keep going back to that. And they had the opportunities in overtime. It was a bad snap, bad hold. Still got a foot on a ball. You can't miss it that far left as well. So it's tough. Defense did their part. Defense on both teams definitely did their part. Offenses need work, but for different reasons. Steelers hanging on the ball longer, and the Bengals actually holding on to the ball there for the most part there. So, and the Bengals catch a break next week against the Cowboys with Dak Prescott out there. So, Steelers definitely need to find ways to be able to, close things out like because this game, they should win big in this game. So that's not a whole lot of positives coming from this game, other than the Steelers, them winning. Eagles and Lions, a shootout. I did say at some point a couple weeks ago that I could see the Lions losing a lot of shootouts, and here we go in week 1, 38-35. And it felt like the Eagles maybe had a little more control than this. They were up a lot bigger than this for a decent amount of time. So, yeah, it's safe to say the Eagles had a little more control than maybe the final score shows, but you liked them to close it out. A lot of surprises there from the Eagles, though. Like, they couldn't stop the run. DeAndre Swift had a monster game, by the way, a positive for the Lions. Eagles just couldn't stop the run. Eagles are usually a pretty damn stout run defense. So it's just a week 1 thing, and I said that going into this year, they're adjusting their defense a little bit. They got some guys in to Maybe switch up the coverages a little bit more, which is great, and then maybe the blitz a little bit more because that's great because they were second to last blitzes last year. And find different ways to get the quarterback down, not just get pressure. That's great. But I kind of said, I'm curious to see if the defense is different because it was a good defense last year, but it needed those things. It needed to switch up coverage a little bit more. That wasn't really a big one. It needed to blitz and generate pressure in different ways more. But if you switch it, are you taking a hit somewhere else? I said that all offseason. In game one, it looked like that. I still think they will be a much better run-stopping defense than what we saw in this game. I know that was a little surprising, but adjusting the defense here and there, are you adjusting it in spots you didn't want to? It's still the question going forward. We definitely cannot make a statement of prediction based off this game, but it was interesting. It was weird. They could not stop Swift. They couldn't stop it. So, in the Lions, just being that productive on offense, it just wasn't expected from the Eagles defense. Even though I thought the Lions offense was going to be it wasn't your same Lions offense. It's going to be a little bit better this year. So that was kind of the weird thing that stood out first. But the Eagles I like the game plan. What's the best way they sat down, what's the best way we can beat the Lions? We even talked about the Lions. I thought they're going to be a little weaker on defense. And I said specifically setting the edge, holding the edge. I said that a few weeks ago, and the Eagles saw that. So they actually allowed pressure. You'll see it. Hurts got pressure on the inside. If you go back and watch, it was kind of schemed up. Eagles were toying with that defense a little bit. They kind of allowed not every time, but they allowed pressure on the inside and they set the edge so Hurts can get outside, and that's where they won. That's where they won out there. Is Hurts is dominating. He had a free edge, whether it's running or throwing, hitting A.J. Brown. Man, that duo looked good in week one. A.J. Brown, such a good player. Still can't believe that trade. It was a hell of a pickup. So that was the game plan. And, Hurts had a pretty good game because he executed the game plan. Was he, insane as a thrower? Was he a great passing quarterback? Or was he flawless or perfect or elite? Nowhere near any of those things, right? But he played very well. He executed the game plan, which was we're going to beat them off the edge. We're going to get you outside. Where you still have somewhat of a tough task because there's going to be some interior pressure, which some quarterbacks kind of fold under, and he has the legs to do it, and he did it. So, I like the game plan. I like the thoughts there on how do we beat the Lions. I like it. How do we run up the score? There's too many teams are like, all right, how do we win the time of possession? How do we get to this certain point, but then mainly focus on the clock? I hate that. Eagles, game plan to kind of just jam, run it up on them. And because if we score this many points, there's no way the Lions are scoring 38 points, made it a little close because the defense wasn't playing as good as they expected there. But I like the offensive game plan strategy there. Really got things going. Love the way A.J. Brown looked. They'll play the Vikings on Monday night. That should be a fun game, actually. Between two teams that were 1-0, but it was a little surprised with the defense. So like we said, Lions, the positive is they scored 35 points against what's supposed to be a pretty good defense. They looked pretty, mainly Swift, the run game. They looked at Williams in the red zone goal line. Looked pretty solid. Offensively, the defense is the problem. That is the problem. They're still young. They're still getting better. They just have zero edge presence. They do not know how to hold or set the edge. And we saw that, we saw that in this game. The Eagles were kind of toying with them in that category. So they got to figure that out. And it was interesting because that was kind of my flaw in Hutchinson and why I had Thibodeau and Walker ranked ahead of him. And I still think Hutchinson's going to be he's a good player. He's going to be a very good player. But that, you had to nitpick looking at those guys. I thought he was really good rushing on the inside, but if you watch him rushing off the edge or holding or setting the edge, he was not that great at Michigan. Nobody really talked about that, and we saw that in this game. He rushed well on the inside, but he insisted on the inside the whole game, and the Eagles were kind of give it to him, and the edge was just wide open. There's just no edge presence there from the Lions in general. But maybe some questionable clock management from the Lions was at the end of the half. As well. But, they scored enough points there. It's just, playing from behind, and it's tough because you're playing from that far behind, and Swift's obviously your key piece. It's what's working. And when you're playing from that far behind, it's tough if your key piece is a running back. It's tough to keep using that because you're running so much clock. And I guess it's the positive here, not that they're bad, is they were playing from behind. They were constantly playing from behind, but you're able to find a way to keep using that and actually get back in the game. Like, so you can say going forward, if we just don't dig ourselves a hole, our offense is pretty good. We're in good business here. And the offense overall positivity coming out of this game anyways. But so you kind of just can't dig yourself that hole. But yeah, Swift in that running game looks pretty good. They're gonna have to figure some things out on defense. Problem is, I kind of predict them to lose a lot of shootouts. Do you trust the Lions to win a lot of these 30-30 games, and how many times they're gonna score up into 35 points, as well against decent defenses? So it's tough. It's tough there. But a good offense outing. Eagles were fun to watch offensively. I was a little surprised by their defense, but they control most of this game. Patriots Dolphins. As projected, I guess, defensive game, more of a defensive game than I guess projected, mainly for the Patriots' lack of scoring. Dolphins defense is insane. I love this Dolphins defense. Super tight in coverage. We saw it right off the bat. Xavier Howard, tight in coverage, has that breakup. Holland comes away with that pick. They're so good at generating pressure in different ways. The blitz is insane. Brandon Jones had a big one, big-time blitzing safety, and Ingram ends up with it for a touchdown. This defense feasted. It absolutely feasted in this at this early stage. It's only week one. It looks like one of the better defenses in football here. So pretty entertaining to watch there. Offensively, they did enough. I thought, it's again, Tua did enough. I thought he was solid, was pretty accurate with the ball. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were monsters. It's the monster duo there. Chase Edmonds was very good catching the ball. I guess the problem is, are they one-dimensional? Are you one-dimensional as a passing team with Tua? And again, Tua was solid. He can continue to get better. So I'm not doubting him with saying that. But, usually, like sometimes teams get away with it, or sometimes it's not even enough if you're one-dimensional with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, we saw that in the past years as well. Like, so it's kind of a question because it's only week one, but they could not run the ball, and there was some concern kind of coming into the year. You couldn't run the ball. Run blocking isn't great. Do you have that? Edmonds is a solid back, but do you have that running back, every down back that's kind of going to take over, create yards on the ground? So that's kind of tough. So if they stay one, and that there is a little bit of a negative takeaway there. The more I talk about it, because early on it's just kind of get out there with a win, and then the game plan starts to come into factor, and that's why teams go south. The game plan. So if the Dolphins remain a one-dimensional team, defenses will game plan for that. Defenses will figure that out, and it'll be a problem. So they're gonna have to find a way to get that run game going, which it's only been one game, but they got to find a way for it to be better than that for sure, because they couldn't get much going. We kind of saw that preseason, as well. So interesting, I guess, something to monitor. But Tua played well. The receiver duo was dominant. They really gambled on that 4th and 7, which after the fact you could say that was a great decision because they scored. Waddle had that big play. I don't know what the hell the Patriots defense was doing on that. That was bad. But that I wouldn't really agree with the 4th and 7, because if they get the Patriots ball back before half right there, and it's a whole different ball game if they end up scoring points. So. But the ball's on Mike McDaniel, and it worked out there. That defense is nuts. Patriots just couldn't get anything going. This video always hits my voice pretty hard. And we halfway through. Yeah, good to hear Mac Jones is okay, because it was a back situation after that. Hopefully, they winnable game against the Steelers next week. A game go either way. They got to figure out a way to win. I need Damian Harris to get the ball more. We're gonna need that. I know they are coming from behind in this game, but I don't think it was to the point where it's like, all right, we can't run the ball anymore. Let's run predictable passes, predictable offense, Matt Patricia style. I don't agree with that. Damian Harris needs the ball more, needs more carries. Dolphins are really good against the pass because they put specifically young quarterbacks into weird situations with the blitz, and they cover very well, and they have playmakers. You just really worry about going into the season. You really worry about the offensive play calling, the offensive strategy, and that's just a big case in this game. It's a big case in this game. Big example. Run the ball to Damian Harris more. Run the ball more in general, but Harris needs more carries. I like Stevenson. I liked him pre-draft. I think he'd be good. I think Damian Harris is just better, so give him the ball. They're trying to tinker with a little bit more outside zone. It just feels like a team that's like in a stage 1 rebuild, trying some shit out. It shouldn't be how it is. Luckily, it's only one game, but hopefully they figure it out. yeah, I just don't like the play calling, the game plan, what they're trying to do there. Defensively, I mean, they held the Dolphins to 20. There was some messy situation, like that Jalen Waddle touchdown. There's situations where they could play a little bit better, but yeah, and they have a problem with the Dolphins, maybe that's what it is. But 20-7, Dolphins win. Insane defense from Miami there, and they play the Ravens next year, who their defense was a problem for the Ravens. But we'll see. They can't be one dimensional though going forward. They can't be. So interesting. Ravens, Dolphins play the Ravens next week, so that's interesting. A coincidence there. Ravens, it's kind of around the score we thought. 24-9, somewhat in that range. I think I had one more score for the Ravens, my prediction, but the Ravens were a little slow on offense to start. Jets defense looked pretty good early on. Like, maybe the Jets got something on defense. I think they'll have their hiccups here and there. They had them a little bit in this game. A big one, I mean, Duvernay had 2 touchdowns, but a big one was, he had 2 touchdowns. Bateman had one. That was the one. Bateman had that deep ball where he got loose over the middle. That's where the Jets defense kind of went downhill. To me, I'm just basing off live, what I saw live. I thought it was cover. It looked like cover 4 to me, which is quarters for every defensive back. Corner gets a lane, a fourth, safety, corner. And it looked like the corner, Bateman kind of posted into the safety's range. The corner let him go as he should, and the safety just did not realize that he needed to pick him up. So is that just a big mix-up there? What was that? So you don't want to see things like that happen. But things like that could happen because it's a young defense. It's a good up-and-coming young defense, but they can have the growing pains like that. So it's kind of exactly what I thought we'd see from the Jets defense. Honestly, they might have been a little better in this game, even though they lost 24-9, because they stopped the run pretty damn well. I mean, they that's a positive because the Ravens are usually that dominant running team, and they really couldn't get anything going running the ball. So is that a Jets thing? Are they really good stopping a run? Were they really good at game planning? Because some teams maybe are. Game plan for that Ravens type running style, Lamar Jackson style. Are the Ravens not as good as a running team as they normally are? Or is it just week 1 where random shit happened? Because we see that all the time. But it doesn't mean every single thing is random because it's week 1. So some questions going forward there. The more I think about this one, though, for the Jets, it's a little brutal because how many attempts did Flacco have? Like 50 or whatever. And he threw for a lot of yards. Not that he played well. And Michael Carter kind of ran well, but just not enough because they were playing from behind. It just seemed like they were kind of productive in a way on offense, and they threw the ball that many times, but you lost 24-9. It really wasn't close. So that's pretty tough. What's going to happen the rest of the year? Are they going to have to throw the ball 50 times? Are they going to be productive but only getting 9 points and losing 24-9 in that range? There's going to be better defenses they play. There's going to be worse defenses, but it's just not a whole lot of hope there for that. They wish they had the quarterback they planned on having in there with Wilson, obviously, to get a better say, but that's a little tough. But yeah, Michael Carter was running pretty well. Wish he could have got more carries, but again, they were playing from so far behind that they still would have wished he got a little bit more carries. But yeah, so that was an interesting one from the Jets. Kind of brutal, but didn't have a whole lot of expectations. Ravens, yeah, again, the question with the run game, it was weird that they couldn't get the run game going. It was weird they started a little bit slow, but I think it was because of the run game they got turned into one-dimensional pass-wise, which is not normally the Ravens. And there's a kind of a positive negative from that because they found a way to still win 24-9 while being that. So it's good to overcome that. Is the negative. The negative is you don't want to become one-dimensional that way. How can we get the running game going? Was it just a week 1 thing? Was it just a matchup against the Jets thing? So we'll have to wait and see on that. I would imagine they're going to be a really good run offense still. But it was weird to see, maybe they're not as good as the past. It's hard to say off of just 1 week, 1 game. But they got Bateman and Duvernay going. That was good there. Lamar did a solid job in the passing game. Nothing crazy, but solid. Some deep balls that looked pretty good. And, they got out there with a win. That's what you got to do in week 1, every week, really. Jags and Commanders. The Jags had an opportunity to win this game. They really, really did. And it felt like I was trying to watch every game, but I caught a lot. There's some games I caught more. I caught a lot of this game. It felt like the Jags were in Commanders territory. I mean, they felt like they were setting up a tent in there, setting up shop. almost the whole game. It felt like it, and you can't find a way to execute, and you can't find a way to win. It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough there. So the red zone problems are real. It started with Trevor Lawrence just missing a wide open Travis Etienne. And I thought Lawrence played all right up until the red zone. The red zone, it's not great. Everyone, it's like something so weird happens. Like it looks like a very good offense until they get in the red zone. It looks like a very bad offense all the way around. So it's tough to figure them out. Like it's tough to figure out exactly the problem. It's just they shut down. I don't know if it's specifically the play calling. I don't know if it's the players shutting down. And there was some of this before Peterson too. It's weird. It's really weird. And that's why I can't figure out what Lawrence threw the ball like 42 times, I think 42 exactly. And that's a lot. And then you look at what the running backs did. James Robinson averaged he ran well. He ran yards per carry, ETN, all pretty good. And they didn't get that many carries. It was like 7 and 11 or in that range. You get my point. Numbers are probably slightly off, but so looking at that, it's like, man, the play calling was probably terrible. The game plan was probably terrible. Why are they passing that much? Run the damn ball more. And I'd say sorta. Most of the time it's like, yeah, what the hell was going on? But I'd say sorta. They for sure need to run the ball more to those running backs because they're good running backs. I'm surprised they didn't. But why I say sorta, why it's not as bad as it looks is because they were moving the ball downfield, doing what they were doing what Peterson was calling. They were moving the ball downfield so well. They were getting in Commanders' territory. There was a little stretch where they were struggling, but they were getting in their territory, I thought, pretty easily, for what was expected. So it's just whatever happened in the red zone, not getting in the end zone. I didn't really, I don't know if there was play calls specifically in the red, like that was bad. I didn't really have that. Like it was kind of hindsight. Like they could have done this, they could have done that with the play calls, but I don't know. If you just look at the numbers, it's like, and it's for sure, like they need to run the ball more. You look at those numbers, all the numbers, Trevor Lawrence probably threw the ball too much. Usually I would rip the coach for that, but again, they were doing what they were doing. They were moving the ball. They got to get freaking points. They got to get touchdowns though. So a lot of missed opportunities. This was a pretty winnable game just based off that alone. But then the Commanders had some turnovers too. Wentz was doing some Wentz things, giving the ball away. They had a fumble at midfield at one point. So it's like, there was a stretch where I was like, when the Commanders were blowing the lead, I'm like, God, how do the Commanders have to find a way to go? This is bad if they cannot. It's kind of both teams. Both teams should have won the game. Both teams, that's why it's weird. This was a weird one. Both teams should have won the game. The Jaguars, that almost makes no sense. Too, but the Jaguars were in the Washington territory, the whole game, and Washington even turned the ball over a bit. Kind of assisting the Jags on top of it and could not execute. You got to find a way to execute. And they were like throwing pretty productively and they were running pretty productively. And then the Commanders, it's like, all right, the Jaguars just cannot figure it out. They are not putting up points, and they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot too, like a missed throw, ETN drop, in the red zone. They're kind of just, it's stupidity, and we're in this lead, and like, how do you not take advantage and close it out? So whoever would lost this game, I was pretty much getting ripped a bit. You wish the Commanders would take advantage a little bit more, and they turn the ball over a little bit. You can't turn the ball over that much, but the positive thing for the Commanders here for sure, and they're coming out there getting out with a win, but I like the way that they found a way in the end. It felt like they're going to lose, and that would have been a pretty brutal loss too. Coming off a turnover, Wentz turnovers were not good. Walker was a great play by Trayvon Walker too, by the way, but who's going to be phenomenal for the first overall pick there. But just bouncing back from those turnovers and some clutch throws down the sidelines, some clutch throws to the end zone. Like the Commanders weren't that last year, right? When they had to close things out at the end, they kind of couldn't figure it out, so that's pretty good to see. That's pretty good to see that they have that wow playability, that big playability, that clutch ability to overcome some things and go take and finish out a game, I suppose, even though they probably should have finished out earlier and not got to the situation where they needed to almost come back at the end. So that's what I don't like, but I like the collection of pass catching options. Gibson led the day. It's like your running back leads the day. Is that good? It was good. It was actually good because they got so many different options. Curtis Samuel started off strong. Obviously, Terry McLaurin, I don't have to explain that. And Jahad Dotson got 2 touchdowns. It's a hell of a rookie debut. He only had 3 catches, but I thought he did a hell of a job in the red zone. And he'll be fine in the field of play as well. This is a phenomenal job with the receiver group there, and we're including Gibson in that. And Logan Thomas too as well. So, Wentz, it's just Wentz, man. He makes some special plays, and he just makes some really bad plays to try to keep you out of it. So he's got to control that a little bit. Commanders find a way to win this game. I picked the Jags in this game, and I was kind of confident with it too for a kind of an upset one. And I don't actually. It's one of those games where I don't regret picking the Jags. I like my reasons for picking the Jags. They were in position to take care of this game. They just could not. They had some mistakes. They shot themselves in the foot in the red zone a few times, and they could have put a lot more points on the board. They got to run the ball a little bit more. But the Commanders, I like how the Commanders close that out. That's comforting, I suppose. Like, they're able to go out there and make those big time plays. So like that pass catching group there. I don't want to say receiver group because you got Gibson in there as well, which he used to be a receiver. Browns and Panthers. Okay, this game. The Browns absolutely dominated the time of possession because of the run game. They dominated the run game. The Panthers could not stop the run. It resulted in that West Coast, the fancy offense. The number one, I don't love those style offenses. I never have, because the number one thing is clock. Winning and scoring should be up here. Like, clock is like more, obviously winning is important, but clock is like the God, but they did it. They executed it. They dominated the best in the NFL. There's one more game to go for week one. They dominated the time of possession. They killed it. That is the game plan in that West Coast offense. 100% the number one goal. Not even debatable. They dominated it. And people probably would say they should have lost this game. They very easily could have lost this game. So it would have been a brutal loss, if you dominate that much the time of possession and you lose the game. Like, it would have been, to me, it would have been one of those where it was like, if you can't close that one out, I don't know which ones you're going to be able to close out, right? So there's actually a negative. I'm going to lose my voice from this video. There's actually a negative from the Browns. They week one, it's just whatever happens, get out there with a win, and they did that. So overall, it's positive, right? Love the defense. Defense played well. They were kind of let the Panthers come back and get going. Baker kind of slinging it downfield later in the game. So you wish they kind of hold on, but the offense wasn't doing them any favors anymore. They're kind of getting back on the field quickly, so it'll happen. So, first half of this game, like, this defense is stout. It's insane. I still like it a lot, but not much has changed really, but I wish they played a little better in the second half. But they clutch up. How about Cade York hitting a 60-yard field goal? People will talk about that roughing the passer, which was bad. It was especially bad because if you watch all the other games like I did, they were letting shit go, and I love it. They were like, there was hits that were kind of late that I thought would have been roughing before all the roughing penalties started, really. Like, back in the day, I think they would have been. They were letting them go. I'm like, all right. And they called that one where Brissett really still had the ball. So that's pretty tough, and that actually ended up resulting in them having a shot 60-yard. You still got to hit the 60-yarder and get over there. They did. But people will say the Panthers lost. I see it on Twitter. So the Panthers lost because the refs. Terrible call. Panthers did not lose because the refs, though. You can't just look at one thing. They got destroyed on the ground, which results in getting destroyed in the time of possession. Like, it's very hard to win when you get dominated. It happens, but it's very hard to win when getting dominated. I mean, just the best and the worst of football right here on your screen from week one. Browns had the best time of possession. Panthers had the worst. There's still one more game, and honestly, that game could take that. I don't think so, though. But so that's not good. The fact that you had a shot to win and you got things going in the second half of this game is a positive, though. Like, you figured something out maybe, and even though you got dominated time of possession, the clock, you had a shot to win, and maybe people will say they should have won the game maybe. So I guess there is some positivity there. I don't like the game plan. The game plan, they didn't run the ball enough. McCaffrey didn't get enough carries, and you may say, "Oh, you want to take it easy with McCaffrey." That would be a fair statement, but then Deontay Foreman got one carry, and Chuba Hubbard got one, or Foreman got two, Hubbard got one. I pull these stats off my head, and that's accurate. That's accurate there. And that's just not enough, So that kind of, how do I say it? It would kind of contradict I don't know if anybody said that, but if they said that McCaffrey, the reason he didn't get enough carries, plain and simple. But if the reason is they didn't want to overdo it with them, I think it's bullshit because they didn't give the other running backs carries. 3 total. So they need to run the ball more. Brown's got a good defense. I think you might be able to, you're not going to run all over them, but you might be able to run on them a bit. But I guess they were running out of time because the Browns dominated time of possession and they were coming from behind, so they couldn't run the ball as much as they wanted to. And that is legitimate, but it didn't really feel like it felt like it was part of the game plan to not run enough. That's what it felt like to me. So I do worry about the Ben McAdoo situation, but they got things going late. Baker was throwing the ball better, getting downfield. Anderson got open. They had a shot to win this game, but they couldn't close it out. It was really because the start and they got dominated time possession, and that roughing the passer call was brutal. And the Browns had a clutch 60-yard field goal there. Panthers, I like some of their pieces on their defense. They can't stop the run though. They're built to play against some of these more high-powered passing attacks. They're built more to play against those teams for sure. These dominant run teams, the Panthers will continue to struggle against those. And they play the Giants next week, who were a dominant run team, best of the week as a team actually in week 1. So Panthers-Giants could be interesting there. So the Panthers got to figure something out there. Hopefully they figured something out offensively, how they got going later in this game against a pretty good defense. But the Browns find a way to win. That's what they had to do. You got to get out there with a win there in week 1. Tie ball game, Colts and Texans. Nobody could find a way to win this game in overtime. The Colts had an opportunity. The Texans had an opportunity to not only win this game, but win this game with kind of somewhat ease in regulation. They could not hold on, so that was tough. They were playing pretty damn well for a bit. I like that. The positive for the Texans is maybe people didn't expect them to play like this with the Colts. They probably should have won this game, but the positive is they put up some production. They put up some plays on offense. Wish they would have run the ball better and differently. Lack of Pierce probably disappoints people. Wish they could have held on for their sake. Defensively, they're flying around the football field. They were getting more pressure than expected. Grenard was solid. Okoronkwo was solid. Derek Stingley felt like he was everywhere. So the defense was flying. Lovey has them flying around the football field, right? And they played pretty well for most of this game. That's why I felt like the Texans kind of outplayed the Colts for most of this game. The dagger, or not the dagger, but yeah, what hurt them the most was that strip sack. It was a EJ Speed blitz, I believe, towards the end there. If that didn't happen, I think the Texans win the game in regulation. Of course, you could say in overtime, if Blankenship hits a field goal that he's probably supposed to hit, then then the Colts should win the game. But, the Texans could have had this regulation. O.J. Howard was big, 2 touchdowns. How many receptions did he have? 2. How many targets did he have? 2. So you kind of wish, I know he's kind of new, but you kind of wish they kind of get him going a little bit more because it was something was going on when there was some sort of mismatch problem with the Colts. So I wish they would have probably tried to find that a little bit more and kind of, continued off of that or, feast off that. But, who knows what the explanation is or what happened there. But, the Texans probably should hold on to that game. The Colts, it's really the complaint about going into the year for the Colts offense was kind of the problem for this one. Why the offense couldn't kind of get going or took them a bit to get going is because the receivers. People say maybe Matt Ryan's not the same. Maybe he's not the same as what he once was, but nobody was really getting separation. Pittman had a monster game. He's solid. He's not like a huge separator guy. But yeah, Matt Ryan kind of looking for guys to get separation. And a lot of time my problem with that is where I could blame the quarterback is there's some quarterbacks that are like, all right, I need the guy to get separation or I'm going to hold the ball too long and I'm going to blow it, and people will blame the receivers for not getting separation, but you should be blaming the quarterback as well. That wasn't the case here. Matt Ryan he realized I need to try to fit some tight window throws in there and I thought he was, and they were tight window throws, so they were kind of on target, and the Texans would make a play on them. They made some good plays, or they hit the receiver right in the hands, and he dropped it. Alec Pierce dropped that brutal touchdown. That kind of started, I think, because they ended up going for it on 4th down after that, and they didn't score. That really shifted momentum. I could feel it, So Pierce got to catch that, and he's got a lot of season left to play well, and he could play well. I do think he was hyped way too much, and I'm not making predictions the rest of the year. Like, he could play well. He could be a good receiver for them. He's probably their receiver 2 right now. But I couldn't believe like how much he was getting hyped coming into the year. It was like, where is this coming from? Like, I know he's a good young receiver, but we're hyping him as much as more than like Garrett Wilson and guys like that. So I thought that was a little odd. And usually some of those young guys, I've kind of noticed they kind of feel all that hype and things like that happen. So he's got to do a better job separating. He's got to catch the damn ball in the end zone as well. But he'll be better going forward. But they need. How is T.Y. Hilton sitting out there and all these other receivers sitting there? Like, the Colts just don't think they need him. They have to sign a receiver ASAP. It was a big Doolin dropped the touchdown. It was a good play by Owens, but he had it in his hands for a bit. Like, got to catch that ball. It's just Michael Pittman has to carry that receiver group. It's pretty bad. Taylor ran very well, which was big because while they were trying to come back, which was tough too because they didn't want to run the clock too much while they're trying to come back, which they got really fortunate with that strip sack and that blitz. It really helped in that case. But it also took the ball away because they were kind of dominating time of possession while not dominating it, but winning it while losing, while trying to come back, which is odd because the Texans, they didn't have the ball enough there in the second half to kind of continue to grow off that 20 because they kind of got going for a bit. They all of a sudden they got to that 20 points. It's like this offense is getting going. They're going to score like 30 points, but the Colts were holding the ball for a bit, so that was good. That ended up being kind of it's weird because do you really were they wanting to do that because they're running the clock? They have to because the receivers aren't getting open, catching the ball, but Taylor's our probably like he's our big piece. Like, so we almost have to. I don't know if it was like in their plan, like we're gonna hold the ball from the Texans while coming back and so I kind of just was a blessing in disguise in a way. I don't know if that's the right term for that, but that worked out. Taylor running well. There was some where I was like, okay, he's got one more guy to beat. He's gonna beat him. He's gonna run one of his patented fucking crazy touchdowns, and it just didn't happen, but he still ran very, very well. But I was surprised he didn't break one of those there. But good comeback for the Colts. I think both teams are disappointing because the Texans controlled most of this game. When you outplay your opponent for most of the game, you win. You got to win the game. You got to win. It might be another one of those. Like, if the Texans can't figure out how to close this out, like, are they going to close out many this year? Like, that's tough. And the Colts, you definitely you can't be happy because they had a shot to win in overtime there, and you hate how they started, and they had some touchdowns drop there. So AFC South, rough start there, but hey, at least these teams didn't lose. They tied. Giants and Titans, speaking of rough start, Titans lose to the New York Giants 20-21, and they had a 13-point lead. So that is pretty tough. This is pretty brutal for the Titans. More and more I think about this game, and the ending was brutal. I'm losing my voice from this video. The ending was pretty brutal for the Titans. The worst thing I saw all day. Not Joe Burrow going on a turnover festival, that disaster, the missed field goals. Well, part of this was a missed field goal. How the Titans ended that game is the worst thing I saw all day. We could start with that. Tannehill makes, and there's some doubt on Tannehill, with the situation. Like, you take Derrick Henry away from the equation, there's no running game. They have to pass down the field with little time left. Tannehill makes a epic throw to the sideline. That is a clutch throw. Not many quarterbacks can make that throw. Gets him in position. So Tannehill did his job. He kind of clutched up there. Was he great? The whole other part of the game wasn't great. It could be better. But he clutched up, made that throw, and they have to. I don't know what happened when they had that burn the timeout. Maybe that's partly Tannehill's fault. He's kind of standing there. He's kind of waiting for a play. They took way too long. They had to use that timeout. So that was your first mistake. Use that last timeout. Now, they had no timeouts, but they wanted to run some clock a little bit, spike it, and then kick the field goal. They overthought things like, all right, what if we run it to our running back and he kind of goes forward a little bit and gets held up and the clock runs out? There was too much time to be thinking like that. They were getting way too far in their heads, so their decision was, let's have Tannehill take the ball, sit behind the line of scrimmage, and take a knee so we control when we get back on the ball and there's no piles of guys laying on top of us. Like, I understand that thinking if there's a way less time left, It's just they just thought they weren't going to be able to spike the ball. They got back on the ball and they had to wait there. So they purposely took a 3-yard loss to kick a 47-yard field goal instead of a 44, and he missed the kick. So I mean, you expect the guy to make the kick, but you put him in a tougher situation there. It's just brutal coaching, and I know people are blaming the offensive coordinator Downing, which he had a bad game. A very bad game. They get to that point where they are playing like they're not playing to score points anymore. I hate those types of offenses. They're playing to run the clock and not put the game away. I hate that. So he deserves to get ripped for that. But at the end there, those decisions go to the head coach. The head coach, that's his decisions there. He controls the timeouts. That's the reigning coach of the year in Mike Vrabel. So that was just absolutely brutal the way the Titans. That's the worst thing I saw all day. So the way the Titans ended that game, had a shot to win there. They could not close it out. But the Giants clutch up, come back and win. The crazy part of this, because the Titans had the best run defense in football last year, only allowed 83 yards per game, and the Giants ran for like 238 in this game. Saquon Barkley leads the NFL with 160 whatever yards, 65, 68, something like that. So they went crazy. It's crazier because the Giants were playing from behind. They're down 13-0. The Titans know that Daniel Jones can't throw that well, really. And they know that the Giants got some guys that can run. But they're playing from down. They don't want to run the clock. Like, you got them in the perfect position. The Giants were still able to dominate on the ground and come back. So Barkley looked really good. Some of the holes they were making were great too. It's surprising, very surprising, because again, the Titans' run defense from last year, maybe it's not a thing this year. Going against that and then being down and being able to do that is rare. That's pretty damn rare. So to be able to do that, Daniel Jones threw one of his patented interceptions in the end zone, which usually results in losses, and the Titans just could not figure out how to close the game out. It's pretty brutal, especially given you're the Titans, they're the Giants. It's pretty brutal, So that's a very bad loss for the Titans there. So just did not expect that. I saw a scenario where this could be a close game like this with mainly defense. But I didn't see it playing out like it did in the end there, like being able to come back by running the ball all over this team that was best in football last year, and then whatever the hell that you call that at the end with the Titans. So that was tough. Wasn't through with their play calling. Tennessee wasn't through with their coaching in general. Was surprised with the run defense. So what's that about? And then the Giants. Brian Daboll, like, winning with running the ball like that, it's crazy. Some things that just didn't. We just were. Again, it was realistic to expect maybe a close game like this. Even if you pick the Giants upsets week one, like that's realistic to predict that thing. But how things went exactly was pretty unpredictable there. So the Giants clutched up and found. I like the adjustments. It's a good job by Daboll, like finding ways. Like, all right, this is the way. This is what we got to do. And they did that there. The Titans had a shot at the end, but kind of blew it there. So the Giants starting 1-0, Titans 0-1, which the Titans did struggle in week one last year. They did play the Cardinals, who were one of the best teams in football to start last year, though. Next game, Packers and Vikings. The Vikings, and this was a little. I was confident with the Vikings this game. I explained it because they're tough game plan. There's really no film on them. They changed the offense and defense. That actually was the main problem there. So to me, it was pretty predictable. But what wasn't predictable was the Vikings holding the Packers to 7. Which I will say this, if you didn't watch every snap, you probably wouldn't understand, but I do think it could be misleading. It could be misleading. Like, you may think the Vikings held Aaron Rodgers to 7 points. Like, this defense got to be insane. I'd say not so fast on that. I do think you can run the ball on the Vikings. The Packers did so in this game. Just not enough because they were playing from behind. The Packers were taking, and they were still kind of running the ball, though. They were just taking too much. It was taking too much time for them to move the ball down the field. That was kind of a big problem for the Packers. It was taking way too much time. But I do think you can run the ball on the Vikings defense despite only allowing the Packers 7, which is a good outing from the defense. They clutched up, especially in the red zone as well. They clutched up, getting after Rodgers, making plays. They got a rare interception on Aaron Rodgers. They got a strip sack on him. So the defense definitely stepped up. Give credit to them. But a tough task against Jalen Hurts on Monday Night Football in week 2 with that running game. But yeah, the Vikings were a really good outing. I love what I saw from that offense. It's a whole different offense than before. The same weapons, the same good players. It's just a whole different offense. There's so much motion going on. There's a lot of passing the ball. So used to the Vikings every first down, run the ball on the last staff, and they're throwing the ball like the guts going on fourth down. Like the creativity, again, the motion, putting Jefferson in the backfield, putting Jefferson everywhere, using both backs, going no huddle and looking in sync, the whole offense on the page, like, all right, we're going no huddle, like no confusion, which was a problem in the past. So I love those things for sure. That looks great. For the Vikings, and it looked good. It was weird. The offense probably played better than the 23-point score. The defense probably didn't play as good as the scoreboard shows, so that was weird. Justin Jefferson's insane. This could be the very best receiver in football. What he did, the way he gets open with his footwork or reading zone coverages and finding the open hole in zone. He's just so smart, so quick, so athletic, good hands, great after the catch. We saw that in the touchdown. One of the touchdowns there. He almost had an insane other touchdown, which ended up being a field goal. Couldn't quite get that second toe down. It was very difficult. You see all the pass. Kirk had a really good game, stepping up past the pressure, finding an open Jefferson. Wasn't that difficult when Jefferson was that open. But some good sideline throws from Kirk, for sure. But you didn't really notice Dalvin Cook in the running game. It didn't really, when you watch this game, it didn't really feel like the running game had that good of a game, but it did. Cook had nothing crazy, but he had 90 yards there. Madison was effective when he was in. So all around, it's really good to see the Vikings, changing up for the better on offense. And the Packers got a good defense, especially in the secondary. So for Jefferson to be able to do those things and that offense to be able to do that, it's pretty impressive. But I expected them, let's not get carried away, because I expected them to be a problem early on because it's such a good game plan. Can they continue off? They're a good team, so they should be able to continue it off. But can they continue throughout the entire season? We'll see. Packers, and they allow a touchdown right off the bat. Jefferson just fine because there's always going to be that's the problem with zone, which I like zone so much. You got to run zone. Not a big man guy unless you have the correct pieces. I'm more of a mix-it-up guy, but if you have the correct pieces. But the problem with zone is there's always going to be an open soft spot in the zone. And guys like Jefferson, guys like Cooper Kupp are just masters. Devontae Adams, guys like that are just masters at figuring that out. So, it's a good secondary. It's going to be a really good defense. But, guys like that find those spots there. But they allow a touchdown early, and then the first play on offense is to a wide open Christian Watson. He uses his speed to get open, and perfect throw by Rodgers, just drops it, flat out drops it. And it kind of goes into my, and there's a lot of season left. There's a lot to, I'm sure Watson will be a lot better than what he was in this game. I hope so. But that was kind of my thing pre-draft, was like he looks the part. He's long, lanky, super athletic. Once he has the ball in his hands, he's pretty good. Ran a good 40. He just didn't really put it together yet on tape because he didn't really know how to get separation besides using his speed, which we saw on that play. It kind of relies on that. And then we saw the hands were questionable at times. It was kind of more of a get the screen pass, end around, or just go deep. That was kind of the situation at North Dakota State. So, I got to put those traits to use more. That was kind of my issue. And we saw it in the very first play. He had the traits. He got open. You got to make the catch, though. So that was kind of the problem. I didn't like how the Packers used him that much because he's been out all of training camp, and they have other guys. Like I wish they would use more of Dubs, which Rodgers seemed to be not so happy with him on a certain play early, kind of read the wrong coverage. So that's kind of a big part that people don't realize. Sometimes teams are using receivers that are reading coverages rather than the most athletic or the guy that's the flashiest or whatever it may be. Rodgers was a little disappointing with his receivers there, and then I think which resulted in some sacks. We saw moments that we just don't see a lot where Rodgers holding the ball a little bit too long. He wished he'd get rid of the ball, resulting in a sack. We don't see it often because usually the receiver does something that Rodgers is expecting. Because Rodgers is reading coverages correctly, the receivers are not in this case. So that's kind of what happened there. So the receivers definitely did let him down. Offensive line, honestly, he got sacked a lot, he got hit a lot, but the offensive line for who was out was better than I expected. It was just kind of more of a coverage sack or whatever was going on there. But yeah, I was surprised they played Watson as much as they did. It kind of seemed like they forced it because they finally put so much value in a receiver by not only taking the second round, by trading two picks to the Vikings by all teams. I still question that. 2 picks, no matter how good he ends up being, 2 second-rounders for 1 second-rounder, and you finally valued a big-time receiver. So they're going to insist on him a bit. So I don't know if I agree with that in the first game. But they just couldn't get much going. Like, even when they got down there, they had some, they got stopped in the 1-yard line at one point. Harrison Smith came up big, was huge, 2 plays in a row on that. Not the fourth down, actually. It was second and third. They ended up getting a stop. Harrison Smith also had a pick, so that guy still got it, obviously. Zadarius Smith got a sack on his former team there, so that was big for the Vikings. It is one of those things. I didn't expect it to be like this. The Vikings were actually a little more impressive all around. But as you could tell going into the week, I was pretty confident for the game plan, lack of film, matchup reasons for the Vikings. And they ended up staying true. And I still think the Packers figured it out. And it should be a good battle for the NFC North. But my prediction was the Packers still. And they'll be a lot better the next time around they play the Vikings for sure. But curious to watch that battle this year. Moving on. Chiefs and Cardinals. Chiefs dominated this game. They may have dominated more than the score shows, and the score looks like it was dominant. 44-21. Patrick Mahomes, the best player in football this week? I don't know. He's probably the best player in football in general. And it looked like that in this game. Only 8 incompletions, bunch of touchdowns, find the open man, great play calls, impossible to stop. Credit the Chiefs' defense in this game. They played a really good game. They stopped the Cardinals way better than the score at 21. That's good, winning 44-21, but they stopped them better than that. Maybe some weird looks, disguised looks, switching things up a little bit, getting a lot of guys involved because the Cardinals look confused a little bit. Kyler Murray looked very much like, I don't know what's going on with his defense right now. So credit the Chiefs there. Chris Jones was a monster. There's not a lot. There's a 44 points and a dominant victory, but there's not a lot to say at the same time. It's like, interesting they got Pacheco going. He got more carries than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 2 receiving touchdowns. What was happening there? Like, obviously not a negative thing, but was it because they were up by so much they started to get Pacheco going more? Edwards-Helaire, we see the receiving ability, which is great. Are they going to use him even more in these more interesting games going forward? So some questions there. Chiefs, dominant in this game. Cardinals, extremely disappointing because this team usually starts off good early because they're just tough to deal with early on when maybe you're not in football shape and you got to worry about Kyler Murray scrambling around and they got that deep ball. They have like a college-style spread offense. It's just tough to deal with, really spread the field, and they can pound the ball on the inside while spreading you out. And they couldn't do their thing there. It wasn't a factor. And it's just like at the end of last year, it kind of got to a point where they kind of looked like teams figured out how to game plan against them. And the question was, is it going to continue in the next year? And it kind of looked like it in this game, and no adjustments at the line. Kyler Murray looked confused by this defense. That kind of goes unnoticed too. Like, they were actually not able to get things. The Chiefs played really good on defense. They gave some good looks, confusing looks apparently. So give credit to the Chiefs. But a big piece of this was because the Cardinals were not making the proper or any adjustments at the line, and that hurt everything, the running game, the passing game. So shocking and poor outing from the Cardinals here. And this one really on both sides of the ball, but the offense got to hold on to the ball a little bit longer there to give the defense help. The defense didn't play good. The Chiefs were getting down there very easily, scored 44 points. So it's tough. Tough one for the Cardinals. They did run into a really good team in week 1. So is it just a week 1 thing? It's tough to predict that off of that, but we will see. Raiders and Chargers. I was surprised it was like only a 5-point game when Carr played as sloppy as he did. 3 interceptions, turned the ball over as many times as he did. Chargers should really, that's the negative. They kind of should put this game away. They should, this should be comfortable a little bit. But they found a way to win at the end. Keenan Allen did go down. And once Keenan Allen going down is a dagger. Because it's kind of known as a pretty good unit. But when Keenan Allen goes down, it does not look like a good unit at all. It's kind of weird. Mike Williams was kind of non-existent. Palmer, too. DeAndre Carter scored. Weird touchdowns in this game. DeAndre Carter, Xander Horvath, and was it Gerald Everett, which that one isn't. I think he'll be good. That was a good pickup. So kind of surprising touchdowns there. That was interesting. Guys that weren't started on maybe any fantasy teams. But, so that's a problem. Keenan Allen probably out Thursday night. Tough to play Thursday night against the Chiefs. So that's pretty tough. Eckler couldn't get much going in the running game. I would like for Kelly to get the ball more your inside runner. I thought he was a little more effective. So I don't know if I really love the play calling and the game plan of the Chargers on this game. I don't really love it. Either they, it was weird. It was a weird game because Herbert played really good. Like Herbert played really well, doing his thing. Tight window throws, see the arm strength, some wild plays, getting outside the pocket, throwing on the run. But why weren't they able to do a little bit more? I guess because Keenan Allen was out, but they were completing passes still. It's just, I don't know. I wish they would have ran Kelly a little bit more. Raiders were surprisingly stopping Eckler on the ground there. The Chargers get out there with a win. Defense causes problems for Derek Carr. That was great. Khalil Mack had 3 sacks on his former team, and Bosa had a sack and a half too. Fantastic. No J.C. Jackson. They're still able to lock things down besides Devontae Adams. I guess besides that, that's a tough because Devontae Adams had a monster game. Just a smart, very good receiver. Wasn't expecting Derek Carr to turn the ball over that many times, especially no J.C. Jackson out there. So not a good game from Carr. They were still in the game in the end, though, so maybe that's the positive. Like, they played a bad game that you don't expect much from your quarterback, and they're, so if they don't make those mistakes, then maybe they win this game. So going forward, that could be good, but you got to take care of the ball better. Offensive line is not the same as what it used to be, so you do worry about the offensive line for the Raiders. Not much else other than that. Like, really, the only positive is the Charger side because they won the game. Like, you wish they would kind of close it out a little bit better. But the Raiders did start to march back a little bit at the end, so maybe they were a little more comfortable throughout some of this game there. And no J.C. Jackson and no Keenan Allen, so that'd be why they couldn't really get the run game going. I wish they get Kelly, like I said, a little bit more. Other running backs a little bit more involved if they're working. Kind of find what's working and kind of go to it a little bit more. Don't insist on the game plan. That's kind of what I was looking for there with the Chargers. But rival game, they get out there with a win. Hopefully Keenan Allen's okay. It sounds like he'll miss Thursday. Hopefully it's not much more than that. Hamstrings are annoying. They're super tricky. And then the Buccaneers and the Cowboys, a little bit of a boring game, 19-3, a lot of field goals. And the story of this one's Dak gets hurt. He's out for several weeks, and that's just brutal for the Cowboys. Feel like their season's over already, which is just awful, just tough. But that's not why they lost this game. They just couldn't get anything going. I didn't like the matchup. Like I was saying, I was surprised by the line. I love the matchup for the Buccaneers. With the Cowboys, beat up on the offensive line. They have that crazy pass rush, the crazy blitz, and they're healthy in the secondary, unlike last year. So that was just a big problem for that offense. People ripping the Cowboys offense like they should. Dak was bad. Like he wasn't reading defenders. Like he was off in this game for sure. We know the Bucs stopped the run pretty well as well, so that was a big factor in the matchup. But the offense was bad. Lamb couldn't get much going, even though they were targeting him. Dropped the ball or a couple balls maybe. So you definitely shouldn't. The play calls were weird. You should rip the offense, but you couldn't. Now you can have a takeaway that's not going to be good. But I didn't like the takeaway that it was going to continue to be awful. I know they're going to be worse than they were last year. I said that all offseason because they got worse. But I didn't like the take. Some people were like, the offense was going to be, even with Dak, was going to be awful all year. Not the case. It was a very bad matchup for them against the Bucs. They just presented their a mismatch, big to everywhere. They stopped the run first. Crazy blitz and pass rush against a weaker offensive line, which the Cowboys are not used to, by the way. Dak's not used to. So I think the Cowboys' offense would have been not as good as last year, but a lot better than this game going forward. But Dak got hurt, so that was tough. Micah Parsons was the positive thing for the Cowboys there. He had a 60% pass rush win rate, which is absolutely absurd. Had monster key sacks in the game. And he hasn't been playing the position for that long, so that makes it even more crazy. That was a positive. They were pretty tight in coverage. Defense looked pretty good. The defense did their part. They're forcing the Buccaneers to field goals. They end up giving up 19 points, but the offense let the defense down. But there's some injuries. Even Curse is hurt, so McGovern on the offensive line as well. So the Cowboys, more injuries. They're cursed with injuries. It's tough, but they did not play well offensively. Either way. Buccaneers, you wish you turned the field goals into touchdowns more. Cowboys were presenting some problems. Donovan Smith went down. Chris Godwin came out. They'll miss some time. That's tough. But yeah, now the Donovan Smith is tough because actually I didn't see how much time he'd missed yet. Probably came out while I was talking for this hour and 18 minutes. But that's tough because they didn't really miss Jensen that much. I thought Hainsey was all right. Like, you missing your center, it's tough, but you can make way, right? But they're a little thin on the guard spot, but then just losing. If they lose one of the tackles, that was kind of the dagger, and they lost Donovan Smith. So that's tough there. And we saw the pressure coming in on Brady. Fournette was great. Fournette was fantastic in this game. Julio got things going as well. Mike Evans had that crazy touchdown. Godwin was looking good until he had an injury. Look even quicker, actually, which is crazy because I felt like he just got injured not that long. Those guys out that got hurt before then, they're still out. So, but we'll see how he does. So injuries for the Bucs is a problem too, not just the Cowboys. Cowboys is worse mainly because of quarterback, but injuries for the Bucs are tough as well. So big game against the Saints next week. They've had problems against the Saints in the past. I'd imagine Brady be under a lot of pressure. I'd imagine the Buccaneers pressure Winston a bit too. Defense of the Bucs, stout. That's a great defense. Got to stay healthy. They were beat up in the secondary last year, which was tough. But they blitz. They get pressure that way. They get it off the edge. They get it off interior. They like stopping the run. They got playmakers everywhere. Levante David felt like he was everywhere, dropping in coverage, everywhere. White on the blitz. Carlton Davis, very tight in coverage. Winfield stepping up, making plays. Everybody. That defense was great. Todd Bowles got him balling. That's a very good defense right there. Got to stay healthy. Offense is not staying too healthy. But, yeah, just tough blows for the Cowboys, but they were very, very disappointing on offense. But it was a bad matchup. Sometimes there's those bad matchups where you have the bad weeks, but that was kind of the positive. Like, they were going to be good. I think they were going to be okay going forward. Not as good as last year, but then Dak got hurt. So there's really no positive there at all. It's terrible. So I got to stop talking now. Too much. That's going to do it for this one. Stay tuned for our Week 2 videos, power rankings, weekly picks, score predictions, more. There's links that you guys are looking for. Leagues, picks leagues, and a lot more pinned in the comments. Those links are down there. Follow us on Twitter. Very important. We'll be talking live during that Monday night game, every game that is. So join us. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.